What's going on, guys? Welcome to another episode review for Bleach: The Thousand Year Blood War. This is episode 35 and 36. We're doing two episode reviews because we weren't able to get to any of the reviews last week. But with me, as always, I have Blue Space.
Yeah. So episode 35 focuses on what was it? Shunsui's fight against. I think I keep forgetting that sniper guy's name. Throughout the last several episodes, he's been picking off a lot of the Soul Reapers that have infiltrated. I guess you could say Yuhaba's version of the Soul Palace. I completely forgot what he called it at the time. I think it was called Warweld, if that's how it's pronounced correctly.
Yeah.
Shunsui, like he gets ready to find this guy, and all of a sudden he gets shot in the chest, but then out of nowhere he appears right behind this guy, and then it's apparently he uses some kind of a like illusion ability, but he says it's not an illusion ability, which I don't know. It's pretty unclear of what kind of ability he calls.
He says he uses the reishi, I think, to create like an after image of himself. So it's not. I guess it's technically not an illusion.
Yeah, and it gets to the point where it kind of runs into a stalemate until the Quincy uses he transforms himself into this like angelic like 8-winged being.
Yeah, I can't say I expected that to be like his. I guess the. I guess like I think it's like the Volstern ditch or whatever, the Quincy equivalent of like a Bankai or whatever. I can't say I expected that for him to look like that.
Yeah, and he also mentions that he opens his left eye to at least counter some of Shinsui's after image abilities, which in turn allowed him to turn into this like his enhanced form, and it came really close to killing Shinsui until Shinsui is able to counter this by finally unveiling his Bankai. What was it? His Katen Kyo.
I have no idea how you're supposed to pronounce it.
I'm doing my best to pronounce.
Yeah, I don't know if we seen him use his Bankai before, because I don't know if we have.
We've never seen him use his Bankai. I mean, we've seen him use his Shikai numerous times, but Bankai, this is the first time we've ever seen him use it. And then what's also interesting that his Zanpak Toe spirit converses with him. Now, if people don't know, like this character was, of course, in the the non-canon filler arc, which is the Zanpak Toe arc, and
So I guess in a way it is like partially canon, just because I guess because she does show up in Thousand Year Blood War, but yeah, it was, for the most part, I think it was filler.
Yeah, so eventually like his Bankai of course completely overwhelms this guy, and he pretty much defeats him like pretty easily just right after he activates his Bankai. And then soon afterwards, he falls to the ground injured with with his Zanpakuto spirit comforting him, soon after the fight. And I think what else happens to? I think that's about it. I mean, we do see scenes with Ichigo trying to fight. What was it?
Askin.
Askin, who earlier who poisoned Grimmjow, and Ichigo was about to engage him, but not until he stops after Shinsui activates his Bankai.
Because his Bankai like stops time, I guess, or temporarily stops time. At least that's how it seemed.
Yeah, I mean it's I'm trying to make sense of like a lot of like the captain's Bankai abilities that they're unveiling for the first time, especially with Mayuri, like we already knew what at least like what he I guess like
I guess both his Shinkai and Shikai and his Bankai ability. Like we kind of already had an idea of what that was, but like with some of the other captains, lieutenants, we've never seen it before. Um, you know, yeah, with Shinsui for instance, like we've never actually seen his Bankai. Um, and it was like a lot of stuff that just kind of it felt like came at you at once, like all these different rules or how his Bankai worked. Uh, he compares it, I guess, to a children's game, like almost like playing tag or something, or like hide and seek, I guess.
Yeah, it just I just felt like the battle ended way too quickly as soon as he activated that Bankai. Just so
Yeah,
like
I
literally
mean, the
on
whole
single
time it
stroke, he
felt
just
like
kills
he
his
pretty
guy.
much had the upper hand for the most part. Like he wasn't really. I mean, uh, that Quincy, like he was of course convinced that nothing could stop him, but Shinsui was pretty. He acted like he was pretty much fine for the most of the fight. I mean, he did, of course, get injured at certain points, but I never really thought like there was any threat to like, where he was going to die or anything like that.
Yeah. But yeah, I think that's about it with this episode. And of course, the next episode follows up on the episode prior to this, which follows up on Mayuri's battle um, against Pranita, who's of course the left
Yeah.
hand of the Soul King.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. I was gonna say like I mean obviously like with the way that fight ended, I was pretty convinced that Pernita wasn't going to go down that easily, like him just being eaten by Asuji Asuji or
Aki Akisuji
yeah, the
Juzo.
giant baby. Yeah.
Yeah,
But of course, as I think we all should have expected, he Pernita is able to break out of it. He's able to get out of the baby. Um, Something
yeah.
about like I forget exactly like it was
Because he's a Quincy, he can use Quincy
yeah,
bows and like he can fire like Quincy bows through each of his fingers, but each of the arrows like contain nerve attachments, which if any of those arrows ends up making contact with Mayority or anybody else, then you're dead. Well, or
mhm.
just explode in just this bizarre, disgusting manner.
Yeah,
Um,
because we see that both at certain points like Mayuri and Nemu both lose their arms, and because I think they get hit with I think with some of the Quincy arrows.
yeah,
But
they both get hit, each get hit in on their arms before they end up cutting
yeah,
them off, and
yeah, but then
um,
of course Mayuri brought with him some kind of fluid that's able to completely regenerate both of their arms.
yeah, but of course, Mayuri berates Nemu for interfering in the fight, but Nemu, like we've never seen her backstory before, and up until like right now, and of course we've always known this about Nemu, that she's not this normal typical Soul Reaper, like all the other characters we've seen. Like it's clear that Nemu was like it had this like doll like personality, and it's revealed that she is like this artificially created being, created by Mayuri, to be this artificial soul to accompany him.
Yeah, and she's apparently the result of different because they've apparently tried to do this before, where they would create an artificial or Shinigami, and the closest they'd gotten is that they created one Shinigami that had lived to be I think 2 years old, but then eventually like I guess it just died. So Nemu is the result of the first I guess successful creation of an artificial Shinigami.
Yeah, I mean, she says she's like the seventh version of the of one of the artificial souls that Mayuri has created, and
Yeah, and
of
I guess
course,
her real name is what was it Nemu number 9 or was it number 7 number
it was
7.
number 7. Yeah,
Yeah.
um, and of course we go through all the all the backstory of like what she was like even during her childhood, even asking like questions to some of the other scientists, which like in which Mayuri is unable to answer her directly to. But
Mm.
eventually she does have, I guess you could say she had some kind of like normal childhood, uh, during her time as I guess you could say it's hard to really say what the relationship between Mayuri and Nemu, but it almost seems like it's somewhat like a father-daughter relationship.
Yeah. I mean, I kind of got that impression. I mean, at one point, Mayuri said something about like he can understand how Kenpachi feels. I guess referring to Kenpachi's relationship with uh, um, yeah,
Oh, with,
Yachiro.
yeah,
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 Yachiro.
sure, yeah. Uh, yeah, and of course, Nemu in this episode is displaying a lot more independent tendencies than being like, being like some kind of obedient servant to Mayuri. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but of course, like I said, like Nemu's actions throughout this episode completely catches Mayuri off guard. But it gets to the point where, due to this, due to the situation that they're in, that he has no choice but to ask Nemu for help. So he tasked Nemu with injecting like some kind of nerve coagulating agent into like one of Pernita's arrows, so they can use it as a drug to use it against Pernita. Um, but unfortunately, it doesn't work. So Nemu takes it upon herself to fire this like gigantic Hado blast, which pretty much blows up part of Pernita. But of course, he ends up regenerating at an alarming rate, which of course he how do I describe this? He infects Nemu, and then like he pretty much blows up her entire body with the exception of her brain. My
Yeah.
of course Mayuri of course isn't. I guess you could say he's in shock with this whole thing, but
I mean, I
um
was kind of surprised as well that they. I mean, I'm assuming of course, she's not really dead because I mean, her brain still is still there. But I was surprised to see that that happened. That happened to her. But of course, like after Perdita consumes Nemu, it's revealed by Mayuri that Nemu's like what was it like her cells are constantly like expanding or something
yeah.
and then they just are they're doing they do so without limit, so they just kept expanding inside Pernita until they eventually just blew up from inside of him or something, just blew up Pernita.
Yeah.
um
I mean, we do have to mention that before this, Mayuri has this vision or
yeah, so
hallucination of.
I like this too, that they that I guess Mayuri is like has these like um is like seeing I guess hallucinations of I think it was Zaya Grands, the that one Arankar from the Arankar arc, who's kind of like the Espada, I guess the Espada's version of Mayuri in a way, because he's also kind of like a mad scientist. So he's I guess they're kind of like almost like two sides of the same coin, because the uh Xyalopero is talking about like what when Mayuri confronted him in the Arankar arc, and how he was like lecturing him about uh like something about like how I guess their ways of their scientific endeavors I guess differ from one another or something. um
Yeah, I think it's so, like, they have this discussion about, making the perfect being of sorts, but,
yeah
Mayuri, at the time retorts this saying, like, "Nothing in this world is perfect, like, no matter what you try or what you do or what you create, you're not nothing you do or make is gonna ever be perfect,
Yeah,
whatsoever."
because Xyalopero says something like I mean, she what's the point if she isn't perfect? Just I guess discard her, and you can try to make another one that is perfect or something like that. Um, but yeah, it was cool though to see Xyalopero again, and even if he's just kind of a hallucination.
Yeah. Uh, but yeah, like you mentioned before, like he allows Pernita to consume, um, whatever's left of Nemu, with the exception of her brain, and this, of course, in turn, um, causes like I guess whatever's inside of Nemu causes like every cell in Pernita's body to pretty much like overgrow into like some giant blob and explode. And then soon afterwards, like Mayuri, of course, like I guess his legs ended up getting twisted backwards soon
Mm.
afterwards, but before like Yumi, Chika, and Ikaku end up saving him. So after this, Mayuri instructs both of them to to these these like healing pods, in which we find out that both Rangiku and Hitsugaya uh, were both healed from their zombification earlier, at the cost of like I guess you could say he said like at the cost of their lifespans of course, but I there's no way for me to tell how much of a
Yeah,
lifespan they really have.
I,
So
I was I was wondering about wondering about that myself because as far as I know, like the Shinigami live for like hundreds of years. So I'm wondering how exactly like how much of their lifespan was cut off.
yeah, so eventually after this he instructs both Yumichika and Ikaku to put both him and Kenpachi in their own separate containers to help them recover. and and of course Mayuri reflects over everything that's happened, including saving whatever's left of Nemu, and it looks like we might end up seeing Nemu again, uh, reformed in some kind of fashion.
Yeah, I mean, I figure since Mayuri still has the brain, he can probably just regrow her somehow. I mean, however he did it the first time because she was, I guess, grown in some kind of a test tube. So I mean, I'm guessing as long as he maybe has her brain, he can just create another version of her, or just create her again. But she would still probably, I'm assuming, be the same Nemu because it's still her brain. So I
Yeah,
mean, yeah,
it's very likely it's going to be the same Nemu. So yeah, there is a post credit scene after this episode in which we see the other Quincy's Giselle and little Toto reach Yuhaba's keep, where Giselle summons zombified versions of not only Bambietta but Meninas and Candace as well. I mean,
yeah.
we didn't know what happened to either of them, but apparently they did end up dying to whatever Yuhaba did. I guess he drained their life force and ended up killing them anyway. So Giselle, used her zombification abilities to bring them back, of course.
I
And
wonder. I wonder if Mayuri were just put them in those like healing pods. He could just reverse all the zombification effects on
I,
them.
if he's, I don't know. I mean, he did bring back some members of the Iran car under his control. So I won't write off the possibility of him bringing the other Bambis back.
Yeah.
But in the meantime, Hashwalth is attacked by Bosby, who's Hashwalth is wondering where Uryu is, but Bosby steps in and decides to go after Hashwalth over what happened to him and the other Stern Ritters that were at the Soul Society.
Yeah. Another thing we should point out too is that when Lil Toto and the Bambis start attacking the I guess the Quincy foot soldiers, some of them I guess have parts of the Almighty in them. It seems because some of them just like you think they're dead, but they stand back up and they have those like multiple eyes that Yuhaba has after he consumed the Soul King and gained the Almighty. So I guess Yuhaba somehow passed or gave some of the Almighty maybe to some of his foot soldiers, and maybe they have it. I'm not exactly sure, but yeah, I just thought that was interesting. Um, but yeah, I guess the next episode will probably be like the confrontation between Basby and Hashwald. So yeah.
Could be, but
But I mean,
it's been flipping.
There's also the Ichigo fight that we've kind of not really seen a lot of after for the past two episodes. So I mean, I also like to get back to that. So maybe the next episode might be that the Ichigo like ask and fight along with maybe the uh Basby confronting Hashwald.
I mean, it's hard to tell because there's at least I think there was that Thor looking Quincy guy that we've yet to see again.
Oh yeah.
And it's been flipped. The last few episodes have been flipping back and forth between different fights. I mean, we didn't get like a follow up episode of the Mayuri fight until like 2 weeks later. So it's
Mhm.
possible we might get like some other fight off somewhere else. But or maybe we might get Ichigo's fight. Who knows? But it's hard to really even tell. Um, where they're gonna end up going for next week.
Yeah. But yeah, I don't really have much else to say about the episode. I don't know if you have anything else to say about it.
Oh yeah, it was a pretty decent two episodes. I think. Well, the Mayuri, I the Shinsui fight, I really felt like it just ended too quickly, just in just one episode.
Yeah.
Unless they ended up surviving somehow. But
I
I mean,
definitely
you
thought the Mayuri fight with Pernitas was a lot more interesting, mostly just because we got, I mean, mostly because of the stuff with Nemu, to be honest, because we finally got to see her backstory, and we don't, like you mentioned before, we don't really, we never really got to know a lot about Nemu up until like this point in the series.
yeah.
So I mean, in comparison, the Shinsui fight, I think the only real interesting thing about it to me was the actually like seeing I guess the physical manifestation of his Zanpakuto, which I guess for people who did watch the Zanpakuto Rebellion arc would be kind of interested to see that character showed up again.
Yeah, I
But
mean, well,
yeah,
it's debatable what I mean no, there shouldn't be any debate whether or not, that arc is really canon at this point because it
well,
doesn't
the
match up
arc
with the
itself
timeline.
isn't canon. It's just the Zanpakuto. I guess the idea that the Zanpakuto can, I guess, physically manifest themselves is
Yeah.
technically canon.
I guess I mean it's I guess it's a good fan service moment for people who've watched the Bleach over the years.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, but yeah, guys. So that all being said, until next time, we will see you all later.